Hello and welcome to the Dr. Julia Sen Health and Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Julia Sen and today I'm talking to Lucy Davies. Lucy is a divorce coach and director of Divorce and Family Guidance. Lucy, welcome to the clinic.
Hi.
Before I met you, I had no idea that there was something called a divorce coach. So I'm sure there's lots of people like me out there. So can you first of all explain what a divorce coach is?
Yes. So, as a divorce coach, my job is to help people navigate the journey of divorce with as little collateral damage as possible. By that, I mean I help people with the emotional, logistical, financial elements of divorce, because the divorce itself is not just a legal process. Of course, the legal part of it is obviously a significant part of it, but there's a lot more that goes into getting divorced than just getting your final order. And I really noticed when I practiced as a family solicitor for about 10 years, and I really noticed very quickly how there was a gap between what people were getting from their lawyer when they were getting divorced and what they actually needed. And so I retrained as a divorce coach, and I'm here to bridge the gap.
We all know of people that have had really awful divorces that have nearly broken both parties. And I think it is one of the most traumatic things that a person can go through. So anything that, and any help that you can get to go through that process that makes it less traumatic for all concerned has got to be a good thing. And that's why I think what you do is such an important service. And I'm really sad that it hasn't existed until relatively recently. Let's say somebody's watching this and their marriage is at a point where they're thinking that they may be going through a divorce, if not in the very near future, then at some point. Is there a particular point where you'd say, okay, this is where I come in? Or can people get your help really early on in the process, maybe even before the decision has been made?
Absolutely. I have people that come to me and they say, nobody knows, this is what I'm thinking. What should I be doing? What should I be doing at this point now? So yeah, I can help people before they've even spoken to anybody else about it, before they've even really got it concrete in their minds that that's what they want to do. So I can help them kind of go through that process and sort of just take a step back and work a few things out there. Then I can help people that are already going through the process. I help people that are quite far down the line and have got solicitors and are perhaps going to court. You know, that they're going to a hearing and they're like, actually, this is a bit overwhelming, I need some support, so I can step in and I can help people there. And also, and I think this is really crucial, I can help people after the process as well. And so that's something that as a lawyer I couldn't ever really do, because you would get to the end of the case and you'd be like, well, great, here's your order, great, we're done, I'm going to close your file now. And then people have to go and they're suddenly in their new life. And a lot of people that I've since spoken to will say, I've come out of the process and I don't actually know what I've got. I don't understand the order that I've got. I don't understand how to put it into place. And to be fair, lawyers do, your solicitor will help you implement the order. But what about the rest of your life? And it takes people between 2 and 5 years. And I would say it's more like 5 years. Well, maybe not, but between 2 and 5 years to really recover from divorce emotionally, financially, and logistically. And I don't think that's, you don't think about that at the beginning of the process. People think, oh, I'm thinking of getting divorced, I need to go and find a lawyer. And actually, they may well need a lawyer at some point in the process, but the first person, in my view, that you should be going to find is a coach that can help you at the very early stages.
So I'm divorced. I don't have children, but for those couples where children are involved, having somebody like you to kind of guide that process, because that's somebody else really, really critical that needs to be told, and how you manage that process. What sort of advice do you give to parents?
Loads. I mean, it depends a lot on the age of the children, the age of the child, the kind of support and guidance that they're going to need. You can understandably, what a toddler needs is going to be different to what a teenager needs. And then again, it changes according to that family and their circumstances and what's going on in that particular family unit. And I think there's a really important bracket as well of the adult children, because you've got a lot of people now that are getting divorced when they are sort of 50, in their 50s and 60s, who, if they've had children, they're adult children, and they are kind of a forgotten generation, but actually divorce impacts them as well. Even though they're grown-ups and they've got their own lives and possibly their own families, it has a huge impact on them. And so I can help people work out not just how to tell their kids, but how to support them after they've been told. Because that's another thing you can sometimes find, that the difficulty of telling your children and the difficulties that raises in you can sometimes shadow how it impacts them. And you think, okay, I'm going to tell them and get that conversation done, and then we'll all just move on. And actually, it's also about helping your child navigate their process, because they'll be going through their own journey with it, regardless of the age. But depending on the age, it is different how they will sort of internalise it and sort of how everything will compute.
Are there instances where you speak to people who are maybe kind of thinking about it, but then maybe having spoken to you, don't go down that route?
Yeah.
It's not an inevitability that, once you speak to Lucy, that's it, you're on the conveyor belt.
No, absolutely not. No, and I think that's another really powerful thing about being a coach and going to a coach, is because actually you can explore everything, and you can come out of the process as, you're not tied into anything. There's no retainer. You haven't got to put any money on account so that I can open a file. Like it's not like that. Because you have to think of divorce as it's a journey, and it's not a linear one. It's a sort of wavy line, and you and your partner and your kids can be anywhere, if you've got them, can be anywhere on that line at any point, and you can go forward and backwards on that line. And there are sort of fixed points. So say making your application or getting a conditional order or getting a final order, those are fixed points on the line, but the sort of journey in between, the distance in between them is variable and it changes. And I think it really surprises people how sometimes they can be a lot further ahead than their partner, and then actually they change, and the partner's suddenly really far ahead, and they've gone 10 steps back. And the same with the kids. And that's also something that's really hard to kind of to manage and to cope with, because it's unexpected. Yeah, divorce is not a linear process, and I have had people who have gone really far down the line and then reconciled.
Oh,
yeah.
So there's still hope, isn't there?
Yeah.
And maybe spending time with somebody like you can give them a bit more insight into maybe their partner's behaviour or their own behaviour, and how that might be negatively impacting. Do you find that there's any kind of gender disparity of how a man versus a woman might approach you, or the kinds of things that they might say to you? I would imagine there would be a difference.
Much as yes. Yes, I do. And I always found this in practice as well. And obviously it's not set in stone and everybody's different, but I definitely find that women, I say, are less together when they come to me, but they pick themselves up really quickly and get it together and then push forward. Men, on the other hand, are probably more hesitant to come to me, and they find it harder to get on an even keel. I don't know why, and that's not always the case.
No, of course.
But I found that in practice, and I find it now as well, which is interesting. And I think it just, I don't know, I think men and women have very different needs in a marriage, in a relationship, and in a divorce or separation process.
And have you had many same-sex couples?
Yeah.
And do you find any differences there?
No.
No,
Not really.
Oh, that's interesting.
Not especially.
Yeah.
So I think that it's just, I suppose it goes down, every relationship's different and every family's different, and the dynamics of every relationship are different. So I kind of approach, even though I have that experience in the back of my mind, I don't really have it when I go in, when I have any couple, I don't really have it at the forefront of my mind. I take them as they come, basically. Well, not the couple, but I take the person in their relationship as they come. Not necessarily like, oh, well, you're a bloke, so I can see how this is going to go, or you're a woman, I can see how this is going to go.
I think, I mean, I don't know whether this has anything to do with it, but I do think women generally tend to have better networks. So I think that support network, you know, women talk about things, really personal, intimate things with each other. And whereas I think men tend to confide more in their wives, and often when men get together, they're doing kind of sporty boy things, and they will, I do frequently say that I think football was invented to give men something to talk about because they won't make themselves vulnerable in the same way as women do.
So I quite often find as well that women might come to me and they don't have a great support network, but they are willing to go out and create one.
Right.
And they can create one a lot easier than perhaps men. Men, I would say they might have it, but like you say, they might have a support network already, but it might be narrower, they're not so easily, they don't make themselves vulnerable or be vulnerable as easily as women. Whereas I think it just kind of comes naturally to women. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. For example, if somebody came to you, you know, where there'd been adultery in the marriage, let's say, does that have to be a sort of death sentence for the marriage? Do you find that people can move on from that?
Yeah, I do. I think, again, it's really interesting working in anything to do with families and kind of family law, because you really do see behind what goes on behind the front door, and everybody has this kind of idea of what marriage should look like and what makes a successful marriage, and I think a lot of it is stuff that we're fed by the media and by society. And we're told that, you know, you need to, this is my personal opinion, we're told, you know, you need to get married and then you'll be secure and you'll be happy and your marriage needs to look like this and you need to function like this in your marriage. And if it veers from that, then, well, that's you know, a cause for concern. But in reality, what makes a happy and successful marriage is wide and varied. And yeah, for some people, adultery is an absolute, adultery and betrayal is that's it, that's the end, and that's fine, and I think that's understandable. But for some people, yeah, they can absolutely come through it. It's possible. I mean, the other thing is I'm not a therapist. One of the things that is difficult about my job is keeping the lines clear, because people. So if I can't give legal advice, and that's difficult because, you know, as a solicitor, as a former solicitor, it's my natural I'm in my natural habitat to give legal advice. But I can't, and I don't. I would refer them to people that can give them robust legal advice. Likewise, with any kind of therapy, I don't give any therapy, and I would definitely refer people. So if somebody comes to me and something like adultery or betrayal is a feature of what of their situation and what they're going through, I can support them to a great extent, but then I would be referring them on to somebody who has experience in helping people or couples dealing with that kind of situation.
You mentioned to me before we started recording that you were collaborating with a company that worked on a little bit of that. So tell me about that.
So I've got quite a few clients that have come to me through a company called Family Flow. They are divorce coaches, basically, and they come at it from much more therapeutic angles.
As in counselling therapists, yeah.
Liz does a lot of tapping, for example, and so they bring a different kind of professional support into the mix. And
so tapping is that thing where you kind of use your calm down your nervous system with a lot of nervous system regulation. That's great because I can help them. So I think that they refer people to me because I've got that legal experience, and so I can sort of help the clients from a more legal perspective, albeit not giving advice, and then they can help people from a more therapeutic perspective. So it is a much more of a sort of 360 holistic approach.
which is really good. And then also we can all support each other because, I mean, you know, it can be a lonely place running your own business.
Yes.
And one thing I do really miss about practice is the fact that, you know, you'd get, and family law situations, there are so many, there's no one size fits all. And, you know, I used to be able to be at my computer and I used to be able to just pop my head up and be like, well, what do you think about this? And how, and, you know, you would have a wealth of knowledge and experience sort of help your client. You don't necessarily get that if you're out there on your own as a coach. So it's really nice to work with other coaches who have a different dynamic to their practice as well.
You do quite a lot of online work, don't you? So although you're based in Worcestershire, people can see you, but they can also connect with you online and do it that way.
Yeah.
Which I think for some people, particularly if they're in more of a kind of coercive situation, might be easier, less sort of anxiety provoking.
Yeah. And it also means that, I mean, I have quite a lot of consultations with people when they're in their car.
Oh, really?
I'll be at my desk and they'll be in their car. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's soundproof box, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's
it is, and it
privacy.
means that they can go somewhere and they can yeah.
Sit in the car park.
I mean, not everybody, but it isn't. It's definitely not unusual. But then I also I do have an office that people can come and they can sit. And I have some people that have said I only want to come and see you directly, which is fine. I mean, I wouldn't. Yeah, it is basically. I prefer it if it's either in my office because then you need to be somewhere that is sort of contained and confidential. But yeah, or online.
Okay, that sounds good. Where do you see things going in terms of how this, because it's a relatively new industry, isn't it?
I think so.
Do you think it's something that people will kind of be more likely to look into as it gets to be more well known?
100% think it's got legs. I mean, when I first qualified as a solicitor, I remember hearing of a divorce coach and being like, that's really interesting. And I got in touch with the coach and she was great. She was just starting out. And I just lost touch because I was, you know, newly qualified and had a caseload and was just busy getting, you know, experience being a solicitor. But it was always something that played in the back of my mind. Yes, now I think there are a lot more coaches. There are a lot more out there, and so
Demand.
And it is more accessible. But I think a lot of coaches come to it from having a lived experience, which in many ways is great because a lived experience is important because it gives you empathy and understanding, and you know, and a sort of direct perspective. But I don't think it's the only thing, and I think everybody has some sort of family law lived experience because, you know, we've all got families and they're all, you know, slightly bonkers in their own way.
Yeah.
You know, also there is all shapes and sizes. So, but I definitely don't think that it's the best driving force, like your own lived experience is the best driving force, because like I say, you have to treat your clients, they are completely individual entities dealing with their own stuff on their own right. But there are a lot more coaches, and I do think that it's something that is going to pick up and increase because they are more affordable, because they offer a broader range of support, because they can kind of tick a lot of the boxes, and then they can signpost to people that sort of fill a gap that they can't fill. And I think that the fact that they can support somebody through the process, not just from a legal perspective, is really, really valuable. So I'm kind of, in my mind, I kind of hope there's a bit of a sort of revolution in how divorce is approached by people and it's going to have to be led by the people that are going through it, because you just don't think solicitor first. Definitely a solicitor might, well, definitely they might, but a solicitor might come into it. But you know, the solicitor that's most likely to definitely come into it is one that's going to draft your will at the end of it. Because that would be something as well. Like at the end, you'd finish a case and you'd be like, oh, you know, here's your final order. It's all been implemented. Great. We're off we go. I'm going to close your file. Don't forget to redraft your will. Bye. It wasn't quite that. wasn't quite that brutal. But actually, you need to get a new will when you've got divorced, and you need
Yes,
to
of
change your
course.
power of attorney, and you need to do all of that kind of stuff. So actually, it's wills and probate that's a definite, that you definitely should.
Right.
Not
Okay. So
necessarily
wills
the
and
family.
probate. So that kind of comes at the end. But when you're coaching people going through this, do you have a sort of another kind of a list of the things that they need to prepare or to think about? Because there's so many aspects that people just won't even cross their mind. You think about the big things, but sometimes the small things are significant too.
Well, thinking about it from a legal perspective, for example, if someone's got to collate, if they are trying to work out a financial settlement and they've got to collate all of their documents as part of the negotiations that go into getting a financial agreement, I can help them do that. That's quite an overwhelming thing in itself. Never mind the emotional and the logistical elements of that. Just the kind of sort of mental load of having to get all of your financial information together, up to date, relevant, presented in the right way, so that you can actually have sensible and realistic negotiations is a job in itself. And so I can help people do that, partly because I had legal training, but also because that's part of what I do as a coach. I can help them get all of their finances together and ready for negotiations. And it's much more cost effective to come to me to help, so that I can help you do it, than it is to have your solicitor do it, who charges a lot per hour. Things like preparing for mediation. You want to go into mediation. There comes a point in a divorce where you need to treat it like it's a business, and I can help people get from the emotional kind of turmoil into a business mindset of, okay, this is what we're doing, this is where we're at now. We're going to mediation. I can help people prepare for that meeting, for those meetings, and understand what they want, what they need to achieve, what looks like a good settlement to them, what do they need in order to get to that point? How are they going to make that mediation session powerful, work, effective? That's the kind of thing that I can help them with, as well as, when they're going to meet their solicitor, I can help them prepare for those meetings so they know what questions to ask, what information that they need to be getting. I can help them manage their expectations. So from a practical perspective, I can help them do a lot of the prep that makes the journey or the stage that they're at go a little bit smoother.
Yeah, that sounds really good, because these things are overwhelming, aren't they? Especially when you've got everything happening at once. Beyond the divorce, there's the possibility of future relationships. So when you're coaching people, do you ever kind of dip into their own behaviours and kind of explore, because obviously when a marriage or a relationship breaks down, it's never 100% one person. So I think sometimes understanding where you may have been going wrong might save you some pain in the future. Do you touch upon that with your clients?
And I do think that's an interesting part of the journey, because it is very much taken at the pace of the client, because they have to get to that point. But I have quite a lot of clients who are already in a new relationship. And some, for example, have told the kids, or the ex-partner knows, and some, the ex-partner doesn't know, or they haven't told the kids. And it's about how they're going to manage those conversations and that dynamic, and how that's going to change, so that can suddenly upset the apple cart quite significantly, or not in some cases. So I can help them work through those situations as well. Because I've had some clients recently who they're in a new relationship, but they haven't been able to talk to anyone about it or put boundaries in place. Little things like, if you're still all living in the same house, albeit you're separated, and your tech is synced.
Right.
So you could have like a family iPad, stuff like that. Things to think about.
Definitely.
Because
I'm sure a few people have fallen foul of that.
Yeah, what you don't want is for your ex-partner to find out about your new partner by looking at the family iPad. But also things like that comes into things like boundaries. And you know, you can have situations where you can be tracked. And so it's about, that's what I mean when I'm thinking about the logistical and the practical elements of separation. It's sort of working out things like that. And then even, I know it sounds small and insignificant, but if you're going to change the settings on your tech, that's going to cause a conversation to happen. Are you ready for that conversation? How do you want that conversation to go? What do you want the outcome to be? What do you want it to not be? It's things like that that actually we can take time to consider, because it's those little things that stop people from moving forward.
Right.
They think that's a big issue. It could become a big issue, but there are things that they can do. They can break it down and they can work it out, and then they can put those things into place, and then things open. The way opens up. Does that make sense?
It does, and I love that you've thought about all of these details that will come up to bite people. And I think when you're going through a very stressful time, you just don't have that additional capacity to deal with that. That small thing becomes such a big thing. Again, because you've got another person involved who's also very upset and stressed and going through similar emotions. You can see how things get really bumpy and really unpleasant and acrimonious when they don't need to be, if you've kind of managed to think and make decisions and put in a plan with some help.
But going back as well to what you said about how do people need support when it comes to new relationships and sort of not making the same mistakes again. A client going through that process and coming out the other side and seeing the part that they had to play is part of the magic of divorce. It's not necessarily very pleasant, and it sometimes takes people years to get there. But people do, and well, they quite often they do, and they will come to a point where they can see what they did, and they can learn how their behaviour, what part their behaviour played, or what part they played basically, and how they can moderate that, or how whether they should moderate that, and what impact that might have on their relationships going forward with new partners, with the previous partner, and with their kids, and with anyone else that's affected by their separation or divorce. And that's really, that to me is like, that's where life is transformative and powerful, because that's when we're learning and growing and evolving as people. And in many ways, as awful as divorce is and as difficult as it can be, that's a real opportunity for growth and development. And I'm, you know, people might need to have therapy to help them get, most people, I would say, would need to have therapy to help them get
everyone I think everyone should have counselling. I think we're all holding on to habits that aren't serving us,
and we can't, and we all have blind spots, and we don't know what we don't know. I actually knew a barrister who was great, who I used to use a lot, and he used to say everyone should have therapy, and if you can't afford it, get a loan and have it anyway. Because he was just like, well,
it holds us back, and it ends up repeatedly disrupting our lives or putting us at a disadvantage. And if you are, as most of us do, make the same mistakes in the next relationship, and we think, well, if you find the right person, it'll all be fine. And actually, no, you've got to make yourself into the right person as well, and that does take some work. So I think it's really, the more you can know yourself, the more you can learn about yourself, the more you can kind of identify those behaviours that are tripping you up and interfering in your relationships in a negative way. The more that sets you up for success in the future in all sorts of areas of your life. So I think, you know, the Americans actually were way ahead of us on this. I think we've been very slow to kind of take it up, but I really do think it's a positive thing. And I think reaching out for help is something we should all be better at doing, really. And reaching out for help when you're going through something as difficult and far-reaching as a divorce, I think is really critical. So I'm so glad that you're doing. You're clearly very passionate about what you do.
Yeah, I love it.
I can, and I can understand why, because if you're transforming a really difficult, awful situation into something where the person learns and grows and is in a better position to move on with some positivity, then I can understand how you would love it.
Yeah.
Oh. So, Lucy, thank you so much for speaking to me today. I've
welcome.
learnt loads, and
Thanks for having me.
I love the work that you do and your enthusiasm for it. One last question for you. We've talked about lots of quite deep and heavy stuff, but I like to ask guests what your guilty pleasure is.
I think I've probably got loads. Which one? One of the things that I really... It's like a weirdo. One of the things I really love doing when I go and walk the dogs is I quite often will have my headphones on and I'll just dance when I'm walking.
Oh, I love that.
I would think if anyone could look at me, they'd be like, what's wrong with that scarecrow?
They just think you're living your best life.
Yeah. I don't know, is that a guilty pleasure or is that just something that I do that's odd?
We can count it as a guilty pleasure. Obviously, when your boys get a bit older, they'll be like, Mum, you're so embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to do it when I'm walking on my own. It's a bit like my own silent disco.
Oh, I
I
like
guess
that.
because I don't get out that much. I need to go to an actual, I need to go to the club. I think that's a guilty pleasure. I mean, I suppose I was thinking about it earlier. I love dancing. I'm really bad at it. And I would like to actually learn how to dance properly because I really love it.
Okay, so Lucy, if somebody is in need of your services, how should they get hold of you?
Best thing to do is to email me at lucy@divorceandfamilyguidance.com, and I will have a website. It's incoming. It's www.divorceandfamilyguidance.com. Oh, and also Instagram, which is @divorceandfamilyguidance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please subscribe, and you can find previous episodes of the podcast on YouTube and Spotify. We'll see you next time.